There's something they never told us about Hercules, and the truth is far more dangerous than we could have ever imagined. For so long, we thought we understood who he was, the hero draped in glory, the strongest of them all, the unshakable force that stood between chaos and the mortal world. But what if I told you that was never the real story? What if the Hercules we celebrated was just a mask, a carefully constructed lie to hide a much darker reality? Right now, you're probably feeling that itch, that deep, almost electric curiosity buzz in the back of your mind. And that's good, because what you're about to learn will completely change how you see him. And honestly, it will make you question everything you thought was safe in this universe. Trust me when I say, the answer you're searching for, the reason you clicked on this video, it's here. And once it's in front of you, there's no going back. Let's be real for a second. We're all tired of the same old stories, the polished myths, the recycled legends, the same faces thrown at us with different labels slapped on. You deserve better. You deserve the real truth. And if you stay with me through this, if you trust me to guide you through the layers they tried so hard to bury, by the end of this video, you'll finally understand why the world is teetering on the edge of something massive. Something that started with Hercules, but absolutely doesn't end with him. I'm not just telling you a story today. I'm handing you a key to a reality that's been locked away because it's too powerful, too chaotic, too devastating for the world to face head-on. And believe me, when you see how deep this goes, you're going to realize this was never just about mythology. It was about control. It was about survival. And now that the truth is surfacing, the fallout is already beginning. You and I were connected right now. You're here because a part of you is awake, that restless part that knows when something isn't adding up. And that's what sets you apart. That's what makes you ready for what's coming next. Most people will scroll past, brush it off, cling to the old, safe version of Hercules, because facing the real one means facing a universe where strength isn't what we thought it was. But you're still here. You're still leaning in. That means you're ready for the real story, not the bedtime version we were all spoon-fed growing up. The Hercules you know, the shining champion, is about to fall apart right in front of you, piece by piece. And when it does, you'll see why the world's most powerful forces are scrambling right now to rewrite history before you and I figure out too much. Picture this. Not a brave savior, but a storm barely contained, a weapon disguised as a hero. Hercules wasn't sent to protect humanity. He was designed to test it, to push it to its breaking point, to find out just how much suffering and chaos the human spirit could endure before snapping. Imagine the gods, sitting high above, gambling on our lives, laughing at the mythologies we carved out of desperation and fear, while their ultimate creation roamed free, not a guardian, but an agent of collapse, hidden under layers of charm, valor, and half-truths. This is a reality they didn't want you to see. And it's the reason everything is spiraling out of control, right now in ways most people can't even begin to explain. You're probably asking yourself right now, how could this happen? How could everyone be so wrong for so long? And more importantly, why is the truth coming out now? That's where it gets even crazier. Because Hercules isn't just some ancient relic of the past. He's connected to forces that are still very much alive today. Forces that are waking up. Forces that are starting to realize their old pawn has outlived his usefulness. Hercules is changing, evolving, and the world's most powerful players know that if they don't get ahead of it, they're done. That's why, in secret corners of the world, hidden organizations are trying to track him, to control him, or if necessary, to erase him entirely before his next transformation triggers something irreversible. In the weeks leading up to what many now call the awakening, there were signs, strange movements captured by satellite footage, abandoned temples suddenly guarded by private military contractors, whispered rumors on encrypted forums about Hercules being seen in places he should have never reached. It started small. Unexplained seismic tremors near ancient Greek ruins, artifacts missing from museums without any trace, ancient symbols, one scholars can decipher, appearing overnight in public spaces, etched deep into stone, as if burned by something far beyond human tools. But the real shift happened when a covert expedition funded by one of the largest, unnamed tech conglomerates disappeared without a trace in the mountains of northern Greece, their last known communication filled with static, one broken word barely audible. Awakening. Suddenly, people who had been researching the true history of Hercules began vanishing. Their online profiles wiped clean, their research papers retracted or marked as fraudulent, all while mainstream media spun the story into a circus act about paranormal hysteria, distracting the public with noise while something ancient was clawing its way back into our world. Hercules himself, if we can still call him that, wasn't idle during this time. Witnesses who dared speak claimed they saw a man, larger than life, with eyes that seemed almost molten, wander in the most sacred ancient sites, moving as if he could hear something beneath the earth itself. They described him as disoriented but powerful, as if struggling against forces pulling him in multiple directions at once. He wasn't alone, either. A shadow figure, sometimes described as a woman wrapped in black flames, other times as a being of purer, shifting light, was seen near him, never speaking, only watching. Some believe she's guiding him. Others say she's hunting him. Nobody agrees, and maybe that's the point, to keep us guessing while the real plan unfolds just beyond our reach. Those closest to the mystery have their own theories. Some say Hercules' bloodline has been tainted over centuries by human corruption, his divine essence weakened and distorted until he became unstable. Others believe he's being manipulated, that the gods who created him built in a failsafe, a trigger that, once activated, would strip him of his humanity and unleash a being designed for only one thing: judgment. If that's true, then everything happening now, the earthquakes, the strange lights in the sky, the sudden eruptions of chaos in places long considered sacred, isn't random. It's all part of a countdown, a warning to those who still have the power to act. The problem is, no one seems to know who can be trusted anymore. Government agencies set up to protect ancient sites have gone silent. Private corporations with unlimited resources are buying up land around key locations. Even the so-called experts showing up on news panels seem eerily rehearsed. Their versions of events just a little too neat, too polished, like they're reading from a script handed down by someone far above them. As if that wasn't enough, the list of potential suspects pulling the strings behind the scenes keeps growing. Some point to an ancient secret society that predates recorded history, obsessed with unlocking Hercules' final form for their own purposes. Others whisper about rogue deities, jealous of humanity's independence, orchestrating Hercules' downfall from the shadows to reclaim control over a world slipping from their grasp. Then there's a theory no one wants to admit out loud, that Hercules himself engineered his own escape from divine control, that every sighting, every tremor, every coded message appearing in the deep web is part of his plan, not anyone else's. A plan not to save humanity, but to start over, to tear down everything that has grown soft, corrupt, and weak, and rebuild from the ashes. No one knows for sure which version is true, and maybe that's exactly how Hercules wants it. Keep everyone guessing. Keep the real threat hidden until it's too late to stop. But one thing is clear. The Hercules we thought we knew, the noble protector, the indestructible champion, is gone. In his place stands something older, something fiercer, something terrifyingly unpredictable. And as each day passes, the tension tightens, the signals grow louder, the cracks in reality spread a little wider. Whatever is coming, it's not just a reckoning for Hercules. It's a reckoning for all of us. The deeper they dug, the darker the hole became. It was supposed to be a breakthrough, a single artifact that could have unlocked the truth about what had happened to Hercules. It was an ancient relic, hidden deep within the ruins of an old temple in Thessaly, sealed away for centuries. A simple piece of parchment, seemingly innocuous, but etched with strange symbols and phrases none of the linguists could decode. They believed it was a key to understanding the final stage of Hercules' transformation, a hidden message left by the ancient cult that first harnessed his power. The expedition team had spent weeks prepping for the find, organizing the mission with military precision. Everyone involved knew the risks, but none of them were prepared for what happened next. The night before the relic was set to be retrieved, everything went silent. The usual buzz of activity in their camp died down, and when the team attempted to make contact with the excavation site, all they received was static, a sharp, unnerving silence on the other end of the radio. By the time they arrived, it was too late. The temple had been completely ransacked. The relic, the piece of parchment that was supposed to reveal everything, was gone. Nothing was left but the faint smell of something burning, as though someone had intentionally destroyed whatever was once there. Worse yet, there were no signs of the thieves, no footprints, no traces of who had done it. Just an unsettling emptiness that seemed to consume the entire area. It was as if the world itself had erased their existence. The team couldn't even file a proper report. Every communication was intercepted, every lead leading to dead ends. The higher-ups seemed to have no interest in the matter, and the team was ordered to stand down. But not everyone believed that the discovery was a mere accident, or that the missing artifact was a coincidence. A whisper spread to the few remaining researchers. Someone, somewhere, didn't want the truth to come out. But who? And why? It was around this time that they met him. A man whose name was never fully clear. He appeared out of nowhere, just as the team was reeling from a loss. He wasn't part of the original expedition, but somehow he had access to all their confidential research. His credentials checked out, but something about him felt off. His face was always slightly too guarded, as though there were layers beneath his calm demeanor, layers he wasn't willing to show. He introduced himself as a former historian, now working in an advisory role for an undisclosed government project. He said he had information that could help track down the missing artifact, and warned them to tread carefully, because the truth they were after was more dangerous than they realized. The team, desperate for answers, reluctantly allowed him into their fold. But as time passed, it became clear that his motives were not entirely aligned with theirs. He was always just a step ahead, offering vague hints that led to more questions rather than answers. It felt like he knew too much about the deeper forces at play, but was unwilling to share the most crucial details. Then came the first warning. It came in the form of a cryptic email, sent anonymously to the lead researcher, containing only a single sentence. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." It was enough to make everyone pause, but the temptation to uncover the truth was too strong. They couldn't back down now. The stakes were too high, but the further they pushed, the more obstacles they faced. Dead ends became more frequent. The usual network of allies began to turn against them, and even their most trusted sources started becoming unreliable. It felt like the world was conspiring to keep them in the dark. As they dug deeper into Hercules' past, the stakes kept growing, but so did the sense of dread. There was a pattern to the events that no one could ignore. Every time the team uncovered something of real value, something vital, it was either destroyed, erased, or manipulated by forces they couldn't see. It became clear that there was someone or something powerful enough to cover their tracks every time, to keep the truth hidden beneath layers of deception. The team found themselves isolated, the walls closing on them from all sides. It wasn't until the night of the failed excavation that they realized just how deep the web of lies really went. The historian, their so-called ally, had vanished, leaving behind a single note. No explanation, no apology, just a chilling warning. You're closer than you think, but you're on the wrong side. It didn't make sense at first, but as they retraced their steps, trying to figure out what the message meant, it became clear that they'd been manipulated all along. The historian wasn't working to help them uncover the truth. He had been steering them towards something else, something far darker than they could have imagined. And the truth, if they ever found it, would destroy everything they thought they knew about Hercules, about the gods, and about the very foundation of their reality. The morning after the relic's sudden reappearance, things only grew darker, the edges of the puzzle becoming even more jagged and impossible to piece together. While the rest of the team scrambled to decipher the new artifact, one of the researchers, Elena, began to experience something even more unsettling. It was a subtle shift at first, the feeling of being watched. She had always been a skeptic, more grounded than the rest, but now, with every turn she made, every corner she checked, it felt as though eyes were following her. The eerie sense of being hunted wasn't new to the team, but for Elena, it was something different. She couldn't shake the sense that whatever was out there wasn't after the rest of them. It was after her. At first, she dismissed the feeling, chalking it up to the pressure mounting around the investigation. But when she received a message eerily similar to the one sent to the lead researcher, she couldn't ignore anymore. The email came through just after midnight. It was short, too brief to be anything but deliberate. "You know too much. Stop, or the price will be higher than you expect." No sender, No traceable information. Just a few carefully chosen words that, like the warning to the team, were meant to instill fear, to force their hand, to make them back down. But Elena wasn't like the others. She wasn't going to stop. At least, not without answers. As the tension in the group began to fracture, Elena's behavior grew more erratic. She was no longer just a researcher. She was someone with her own stake in this unraveling mystery, a personal need to get to the bottom of things. The problem was, she was starting to uncover things no one had anticipated. Elena found old documents in an obscure part of the university archives detailing a secret study into Hercules' lineage, a study that had been shut down decades ago after a series of unexplained disappearances. These records contained names of people who had been involved in the project but never seen again. And one of those names was disturbingly familiar. It was the same historian who had been advising the team. But it wasn't just the name that troubled her. It was the notes in the margin of the report, small, cryptic scribbles that spoke of a dangerous experiment, one that had gone horribly wrong, something hidden so deep within the ancient text that it was beyond their comprehension. The historian, the very person who had inserted himself into their mission, who had steered them towards what they thought was a truth, was not merely a guide. He was one of them. He was a part of this tangled web, a key player in whatever was unfolding. Elena couldn't bring herself to confront him yet. She knew that revealing what she discovered would unravel the entire story and possibly destroy whatever tenuous trust they had left. But there was something about the historian's absence, his sudden disappearance after the warning, that didn't sit right with her. It wasn't just a coincidence. Something had driven him to leave, something more than just fear, and that thought pushed Elena further into the darkness, further into the twisted reality they were all unknowingly part of. But then came another twist. In an attempt to distract herself from the mounting paranoia, Elena began examining the relic itself. She had seen it the day it reappeared, and something about it seemed wrong. It didn't quite match the descriptions in the historical text they had consulted earlier. Something was off in the way it reflected the light, the way it felt colder than it should. She ran a series of tests, comparing it to the images they had from the original excavation. And that's when she made a shocking discovery. The relic wasn't the same one that had gone missing. It was a replica. A flawless one, but a replica nonetheless. Whoever had replaced it had not only anticipated their every move, but had also gone to great lengths to keep them chasing shadows, to keep them so distracted that they wouldn't realize the truth staring them in the face. As Elena pieced together this new puzzle, she received a call, but it wasn't from anyone she knew. The voice on the other end was distorted, almost robotic, and the words were chilling. It's not him. He's a pawn, just like you. The real one is much worse. The line cut out before she could get any more answers. But the implication was clear. The historian was just a small piece in a much larger game. And the real force behind this entire operation, the one manipulating Hercules, the one behind the missing relic, the one sending threats to her and the team, was someone far more dangerous than they could ever imagine. Elena's mind raced as she processed this new revelation. She was no longer just uncovering the past. She was being drawn into a present nightmare, one where no one could be trusted, not even the people she had worked beside for months. The historian's betrayal was just the beginning. It wasn't just about finding out what happened to Hercules anymore. It was about surviving long enough to expose the truth, even if it meant sacrificing everything. But just as she was about to confront the team, to tell them everything she had uncovered, a new message appeared on her phone. This time, it wasn't an email or a call. It was a video. She clicked it, and there on the screen was a figure, shrouded in darkness, their face obscured, speaking in a tone that was both soothing and unnerving. You have come too far, but you're still blind. Do you really want to know who's behind it all? You've been chasing the wrong person, the wrong enemy. And when you see the truth, nothing will ever be the same again. The night Elena's world began to unravel, it wasn't the shadows that unsettled her. It wasn't the cold that seeped into her bones or the soft, echoing steps that followed her in the empty hallways of the university. No, it was a silence, that unnerving, oppressive silence that had taken over her life ever since the first strange warning. The calm before a storm. The kind of silence that fills your chest, makes your breath feel shallow, and your mind race with 1,000 possibilities. None of them good. That's when she first knew for sure. She was no longer just investigating a mystery. She was a target. She wasn't just in danger. She was in the kind of danger that could swallow her whole. It started innocuously enough. Elena was reviewing the relic again, trying to make sense of the markings she had discovered, hoping that they might finally hold the key to unlocking the truth about Hercules' transformation. The others had left for the night, the campus quiet and still. As she sat in her dimly lit office, her fingers ran across the rough surface of the artifact, tracing the lines that seemed to pulse with a cold energy of their own. She'd been working late into the night for weeks now, pushing herself to the brink of exhaustion, but something had changed in her since the night the video appeared. She was no longer just looking for answers. She was running out of time. She hadn't noticed it at first. The small sound that barely registered in the background. It wasn't a knock or the sound of footsteps, but the faintest click. It sounded like a door slowly creaking open. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up, and her pulse quickened as she looked toward the hallway outside her office. She had been alone for hours, yet now the stillness felt oppressive, suffocating, as if someone was there just out of sight, watching, waiting. Her eyes darted to the clock. It was just after 2 a.m. The building was deserted. No one should have been there. Her heart pounded in her chest as she reached for her phone, but before she could unlock it, a sudden burst of static crackled through the room. She froze. It was the unmistakable sound of a radio frequency interference, a frequency she had heard only once before when they were at the excavation site. A signal, a warning. Her mind raced. Had they found her? She could hear her breath quicken as a familiar feeling of being hunted gripped her once more, tightening around her chest like a vice. The feeling of being watched wasn't just paranoia anymore. It was real. But who was watching her? And why? She glanced out the office window. The streets below dark and empty. The occasional car driving by far below. Nothing. She breathed out slowly, trying to calm her racing thoughts. But as she turned back to the relic, she saw it, a dark silhouette, standing motionless in the doorway, just beyond a faint pool of light from the desk lamp. Elena's breath caught in her throat, her body frozen in place. It was only a glimpse, a flash of movement, but enough for her to know. Someone was in the building with her. Her mind screamed at her to run, to grab her things and escape, but her legs wouldn't move. The figure stood there, unmoving like a statue, its presence sending a chill down her spine. She strained to hear any sound, but there was nothing. The silence was suffocating. A moment stretched into eternity as she stared at the figure, unsure whether it was a hallucination, a trick of her exhausted mind. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the shadow vanished, leaving the hallway empty. But the terror wasn't over. No, it had only just begun. Elena grabbed her phone, dialing the lead researcher's number without thinking. Her fingers were trembling. It rang once, twice, then abruptly cut off. She tried again, and again. Nothing. Her pulse quickened, the pit in her stomach deepening. What was going on? Why wasn't anyone answering? She shoved the phone back into her pocket, her eyes darting toward the door. It felt like everything had shifted, like the very air in the room had changed. The threat wasn't just outside, it was here and it was closing in. Without a second thought, Elena grabbed the relic and stuffed it into her bag, then rushed toward the door, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure it could be heard from miles away. The hallway was empty, eerily quiet. She took a cautious step forward, then another, and that's when she saw it, a figure standing at the end of the corridor, its face obscured by a hood, its body cloaked in shadow. Elena's breath caught in her throat. The figure didn't move, didn't even acknowledge her presence. For a long moment, she just stood there, her mind racing to comprehend what she was seeing. And then, without a word, the figure turned and disappeared around the corner. Elena's instincts kicked in. She moved faster now, her legs carrying her toward the stairs, hoping to catch a glimpse of the figure, to understand who was following her, who was hunting her. But when she reached the stairs, the building was silent again. No one was there. The figure had vanished. But that wasn't the worst part. The night felt darker than before, the weight of the secrets pressing in on Elena, suffocating her thoughts. She had barely managed to escape the university, barely evading the figures that had been watching her from the shadows. She had hoped the streets would offer some respite, that the cool night air would clear her mind, but it only heightened her paranoia. Her mind raced through the tangled web of lies, deceptions, and the terrifying feeling that she was no longer in control of the situation. She thought she was getting closer to the truth, that the relic would be the key to solving the mystery, but now it felt like the more she uncovered, the further away she got from any real answers. Each revelation seemed to create more questions, and every step she took only led her deeper into a labyrinth of uncertainty. As Elena walked through the deserted streets, the sense of being followed returned, gnawing at the back of her mind. She turned sharply down a side alley, half expecting to see one of the shadowy figures again, but the path was empty, eerily still. Her breath came out in shallow bursts, and her thoughts were too clouded to make sense of anything. That's when the phone rang. It was an unknown number, one that she hadn't seen before. Her heart skipped a beat. Was it another warning, another threat? She hesitated, her hand hovering over the screen. Before she answered, "Hello." Her voice was shaky, but she forced herself to sound calm. "Elena!" The voice on the other end was low, almost a whisper. "You need to stop. You don't know what you're messing with." The word sent a chill down her spine. There was something in the voice that was familiar, something that sparked a moment of recognition, but she couldn't place it. "Who is this?" she demanded, her grip tightening on the phone. "What do you know?" "I know everything," the voice replied, a hint of bitterness seeping through. "You think you're the only one looking for answers? The only one who can see through the lies? You're not, Elena. You're just another pawn in this game. And if you keep digging, you're going to wish you never started." Her pulse raced, and for the first time, she felt the overwhelming weight of fear, the kind that made it hard to breathe. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The silence on the other end stretched on, and for a moment, Elena thought the call had ended. But then, the voice spoke again, quieter this time, as if confessing something deeply personal. "The relic, it's not what you think. It never was. And the person you've been trusting, they're the reason you're in danger." The word hung in the air, the gravity of them sinking in slowly. Elena's stomach churned. "What are you talking about? Who have I been trusting?" Her mind raced back to the people she confided in, the ones who had been part of the research from the beginning. The historian, the team. Could someone so close to her have been manipulating her all along? "I'm not going to tell you everything. You need to figure out for yourself," the voice continued, the words sharp and cryptic. "But I'll give you this. The historian? He's not who he says he is. And neither are the others. They've been lying to you from the start. You've been played, Elena, played by someone who's been controlling every move you've made." The phone call ended abruptly, and Elena stood there, frozen, the weight of the words echoing in her mind. Her hands trembled as she lowered the phone. The familiar faces, the people she'd trusted, now seemed shrouded in uncertainty, their motives unclear, their actions questionable. Had everything she had believed in been a lie? Had the team been in on something far darker than she had realized? A sickening thought began to take shape in her mind. What if it wasn't just the historian who had been hiding something? What if the entire investigation, everything they had uncovered about Hercules and the relic, was part of a much larger, far more dangerous scheme? What if the people she had relied on the most had been orchestrating this whole thing from the beginning, manipulating her at every turn? Elena barely had time to process the chilling message left beside the relic before the creak of a floorboard behind her sent a jolt of fear through her spine. She spun around, heart hammering in her chest, only to find herself face to face with someone she thought she could trust, Marcus, her longtime colleague, the man who had been there through every twist and turn of the investigation, the one who had sworn he would protect her no matter what. For a split second, relief washed over her, but then she noticed a look in his eyes, cold and unfamiliar, and the gun he was trying and failing to hide behind his back. The realization crashed down on her like a tidal wave. Marcus wasn't here to help her. He was here to silence her. A sick smile tugged at the corner of Marcus's lips as he stepped forward, closing the distance between them. "You should have left it alone, Elena," he said, his voice low and filled with something she had never heard from him before, contempt. You should have stopped when you had the chance. Elena's mind raced. All those late nights spent poring over ancient texts, the whispered conversations about what they might find, the plans they made to reveal the truth. It had all been a lie. Marcus had been playing a role the entire time, feeding her just enough information to keep her moving in the direction they wanted, guiding her like a puppet on a string. She backed away slowly, her pulse thundering in her ears, trying to stay calm even as panic clawed at her throat. "You're one of them," she whispered, the words tasting bitter on her tongue. "You were never trying to help me." Marcus gave a small, mocking bow. "Very good. You're smarter than I gave you credit for. But it's too late for you now." Before she could react, two more figures stepped out of the shadows. Dr. Calloway and Professor Green, other respected members of the research team, people she had trusted implicitly. Their faces were masks of cold indifference, no hint of the warmth and camaraderie they had once shown her. Elena realized with a sickening twist of her gut that the conspiracy wasn't limited to Marcus. It stretched across the entire team. They had been working together from the start, using her curiosity, her drive for the truth, to lead her straight to the answers they wanted to bury forever. "You were never supposed to find out," Dr. Calloway said, his voice calm and measured, like a teacher explaining a particularly difficult lesson to a student. "The story of Hercules? The relic? They're just pieces of a much larger puzzle, one that cannot, under any circumstances, be made public. You would have thrown everything into chaos. You still might if you keep resisting." The pieces started falling into place, each revelation a blow to her already battered trust. The relic wasn't about proving Hercules' true story. It was about hiding the truth behind a myth carefully crafted over centuries. A truth so dangerous, so devastating, that powerful people would do anything to keep it hidden. The myth of Hercules wasn't just a legend. It was a cover-up, a way to mask the existence of an ancient society that still operated in the shadows today, influencing governments, economies, and world events. Hercules wasn't the hero everyone believed he was. He was the founder of a secret lineage that wielded terrifying power, and Elena had stumbled too close to exposing it all. "But why me?" Elena demanded, struggling to keep her voice steady even as fear threatened to consume her. "Why involve me at all?" Marcus smirked, stepping even closer, his voice dripping with disdain. "Because you're reckless. Because you asked too many questions. Because we knew you wouldn't be able to resist once you saw the first clue. We needed someone to find the relic and trigger the final protocol, and you did exactly what we needed." The betrayal cut deeper than any blade. Elena had always believed in the importance of truth, in the necessity of uncovering hidden stories and bringing them into the light. Now, she realized she had been used as a pawn in a game she never even knew existed, and the consequences were about to crash down on her in ways she couldn't yet imagine. Before she could say anything else, the building shuddered violently, a deep rumbling noise echoing through the corridors. An explosion? An attack? Panic flared in Marcus's eyes for the first time, and Elena seized the moment, darting past him and sprinting down the hallway. Shouts rang out behind her, but she didn't dare look back. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to survive, to expose the truth no matter the cost. As she burst out into the night, gasping for breath, she realized the danger was far bigger than she had ever thought possible. The organization protecting the legacy of Hercules wasn't just a handful of scholars and historians. It was a global network, deeply entrenched in places of unimaginable power. And now that she knew the truth, there would be no safe place left for her in the world. The city stretched out before her, glittering and indifferent, and somewhere in the darkness, more enemies were surely waiting. But Elena's resolve hardened. They had underestimated her. They had thought she would crumble under the weight of betrayal and fear. They were wrong. She clutched the relic tightly in her hand, the ancient metal warm against her skin, and disappeared into the shadows, determined to finish what she had started, no matter what it cost her. Because now, the truth wasn't just about history. It was about survival. And Elena had no intention of going down without a fight. The storm had finally broken over the city, lightning slashing across the sky as rain poured down in violent sheets, hammering against the stone walls of the hidden chamber beneath the abandoned museum. Elena stood at the threshold, soaked and shaking, every muscle in her body tight with fear and fury. The walls were etched with symbols she had spent years deciphering. Ancient writings tied to the legacy of Hercules, but altered, rewritten, manipulated over generations. This was the place everything had pointed to, not the dusty university archives, not the relic itself. This chamber, hidden beneath layers of misdirection and guarded by lies, was where the truth had been buried, and now it had surfaced, clawed its way up through history, to demand a reckoning. She stepped inside slowly, her eyes adjusting to the low, flickering glow of old gas lamps lining the perimeter. The air was thick with moisture and tension, and the sound of footsteps echoed from the far end. Elena's heart dropped as Marcus emerged from the shadows, dressed not in his usual academic casual, but in ceremonial robes she recognized from the fragmented sketches she'd found in an ancient Greek text just days ago. He looked different now, stripped of his false charm and pretense. He looked like what he truly was, a believer, a fanatic, the high priest of something far older and far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. "You made it," he said, his voice eerily calm. "I was starting to think you'd run." Elena clenched her fists, every part of her screaming to flee. But she stood her ground. "I should have known it was never about Hercules himself. It was always about power. You twisted his myth into something you could control." Marcus smiled, the corners of his mouth twitching like he couldn't quite hold it together. Control? No. Preservation. Hercules didn't just exist. He ruled. He set the foundation for a lineage of strength, purity, dominance. His bloodline runs through our leaders, our corporations, our institutions, and we've kept it hidden for a reason. People can't handle the truth. They destroy it. "You mean they destroy you?" Elena shot back, her voice hardening. "Because the truth isn't about a noble bloodline. It's about violence, oppression, rewriting history, so the powerful stay powerful. That's what you've been protecting." She moved closer to the altar in the center of the chamber. Upon it lay the final piece of the relic. Not a weapon as she had feared, but a scroll. Old, delicate, bound in bronze, humming with a strange energy. She didn't need to open it to know what it was. It was the original story, the one before the legends were corrupted. The true account of Hercules, not as a hero, but as a conqueror, a man who built an empire on fear and submission, whose descendants forged secret orders to keep the lie alive. Marcus followed her gaze, and his mask finally slipped. If you read that scroll, it all unravels. Centuries of order, gone. You'll plunge the world into chaos. "No," Elena said, her voice steady now. "I'll give people the truth. What they do with it, that's up to them." He lunged at her, rage overtaking control, but she was ready. She dodged, sending him crashing into the altar, knocking the scroll to the floor. The metal casing cracked open on impact, and for a moment, time seemed to slow. The parchment unfurled on its own, glowing faintly, revealing lines of ancient Greek text that shimmered with unnatural brilliance. Both of them froze, the chamber pulsing around them like it had come alive. Then Marcus screamed, not in pain, but in revelation. "You don't understand," he cried. "This was never meant for you. It was meant for the bloodline." Elena stared at the scroll, suddenly realizing why she'd been able to track its path, why the relic had responded to her presence, why the shadows had been closing in not just to kill her, but to claim her. She wasn't an outsider. She was part of it. Somehow, she was connected to the bloodline, a descendant not of heroes, but of the very darkness they had hidden from the world. The relic had called to her, because it recognized her. Marcus dropped to his knees, breathless, staring at her with awe and horror. "It should have been me," he whispered. "I was supposed to fulfill the prophecy." Lightning struck overhead again, and the chamber shook. The walls split in places, dust raining down from the ceiling. The truth was tearing the foundation apart, literally. The scroll had activated something dormant, a safeguard or a curse, and now the entire place was coming undone. Elena snatched the scroll and turned to run, but Marcus grabbed her wrist one last time, his eyes pleading. "Don't tell them. Don't show them what we are." She looked down at him, tears mixing with the rain still dripping from her hair. "That's the difference between us. I'm not afraid of the truth. She tore free, sprinting out of the chamber as the ceiling began to collapse. The entire structure groaned, ancient stones crumbling into ash behind her. She didn't stop until she was back in the open air, the night storm washing the blood and dirt from her skin. The storm had finally calmed as Elena stood at the edge of the cliff, the dark expanse of the ocean stretching out before her. The wind was still strong, but it no longer felt like an enemy. It was just part of the world she now understood. She hadn't gone back to the hidden chamber. She hadn't returned to the people who had once been her colleagues, her friends, those she had trusted. Instead, she had taken the scroll, the last piece of the puzzle, and hidden it away. For weeks, she had been moving in silence, watching, waiting. The world had heard nothing from her since that final broadcast, the one where she had asked a question that would echo for ages. Do I release it or let it burn? The truth she carried was far too dangerous to let go unchecked, far too powerful to be trusted with anyone else. But she had learned something in the days after. Power, true power, wasn't the secrets you kept or the knowledge you hid. It was in how you chose to wield it. And for the first time, Elena understood that her role wasn't to bring the world to its knees with a truth that would only breed chaos. It wasn't to live in the shadow of a bloodline that didn't define her. The legacy of Hercules, of ancient orders and dynasties, it was all a story that wasn't hers to finish. It belonged to history, to the past, and there were some things better left buried. The scroll, now locked away in a safe place, would never see the light of day, but the lessons it held would stay with her. She had seen the cost of blind belief in power, the devastation that came with holding on to secrets long past their time. And though she could never undo what had been done, the people lost, the betrayals, the lives shattered, she could change the way she moved forward. Elena's journey hadn't just been about uncovering the truth. It had been about finding herself in the face of the lies and the destruction left in the wake of that search. She realized that even in a world built on secrets, it was possible to choose how you responded to it. The phone call she had been waiting for finally came in the quiet of the early morning, the sound of her ringtone pulling her back on the ocean's relentless waves. She knew what the call would be. It was Marcus, his voice strained and filled with regret. Calling to offer his version of an apology, a plea for forgiveness, maybe even an explanation for the part it played in this tangled web. But Elena didn't pick up. Not this time. The past was no longer her burden to carry, and no one, not even Marcus, could rewrite the story she had lived. She didn't need the closure he offered. She had found it on her own. As she stared out at the horizon, the faintest light of dawn beginning to break through the clouds, Elena couldn't help but feel the weight of everything she had lost, but also everything she had gained. She wasn't the same woman who had stepped into the labyrinth of secrets, lies, and power. She had been broken, betrayed, and nearly consumed by the weight of it all, but she had survived. And now, she stood at the edge of something new. It wasn't just about knowing the truth anymore. It was about living it. The wind tugged at her hair, as if urging her to move forward, to embrace what lay ahead. The future wasn't certain, but for the first time in a long time, Elena felt at peace with that. She knew who she was, and that knowledge was enough. As she turned to walk away from the cliffside, her steps were steady and sure. She wasn't running from the world anymore. She was facing on her own terms. The camera zoomed in slowly, capturing her retreating figure, her back to the chaos that had once consumed her. The screen flickered for a moment, the final shot lingering on her face as she glanced over her shoulder, almost as if she were speaking directly to the audience. There was no dramatic farewell, no final statement, just a look that carried everything she had learned, everything she had fought for. She wasn't the hero of a story that had already been written. She was the author of her own. The screen faded to black. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of inner strength and resilience. Until next time, stay strong, stay brave, and never forget your worth.